There's a literature that's been growing over the past few decades on sudden gains in therapy. And what sudden gains are is that it's been observed by researchers who look at psychotherapy process that therapy improvement doesn't happen always step by step by step. It does sometimes and for some people, but that there are in the course of therapy often certain sessions where there's quite a big gain and improvement in symptoms from one session to the next. And that's called a sudden gain session. And there's been a lot of interest in research in looking back at what's happened in that previous session that could account for this sudden gain. And it's considered important because there's some evidence that sudden gains are actually linked to more positive therapy outcome. So if people do have sudden gains, they're more likely to have a positive outcome from their therapy. And the relevance to talking about repairs and rupture is that there's some recent research that finds that between session improvement is often observed after a session in which there's been a therapeutic rupture and then a repair of that rupture in that session. It's kind of rupture and repair sessions, we could call them, often lead to sudden gains in the following week. And this has been found and studied particularly in brief relational therapy, where therapists are really taught to look and actively notice for ruptures and then to bring them up right away and talk to the client and do an immediate repair of those ruptures. My personal guess about why rupture and repair sessions could be linked to sudden gains in therapy is that I found in my experience with clients that when there has been a rupture and we really process it and repair it, that usually in that session we usually have a big boost in our therapy alliance, which I think gives, in some ways, therapy alliance gives greater credibility to some of the ideas being discussed in therapy. And oftentimes the rupture and repair process can be linked directly to client issues. So for example, if I'm working with a depressed client, they're going to often respond to the rupture with a lot of self-blame and a lot of negativity. And in the processing of it, if I do my job right and I share responsibility for the rupture and work with them on the repair, they're going to come out seeing, well, maybe it wasn't all my fault and maybe I learned some good things. There's a competency factor. If the client has anxiety and we do rupture and repair, from an anxiety frame, they're likely to see the rupture as dangerous and bad things are going to happen. I'm not going to be able to cope. And then when we go through the repair process, they're going to say, oh, that really wasn't as dangerous and I was able to cope with it. And in fact, we got onto better ground. And so that's going to be more of a bolstering of coping confidence for the anxious client. So I think rupture and repair, it can serve many different functions that are really extremely helpful for therapy progress.